Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a long-awaited review. Today we are talking about the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Before I get into it, I want to address a little bit that I was gonna film different videos today, but the weather is so sad and miserable that filming spring videos isn't really doable, and I had lipstick on my teeth. Anyways, I promise I'll get into the spring mood once the weather is also a bit springy. Like, I just need a ray of sunshine and no rain for like a day, and then I might get into it. Anyways, let's start talking about this palette. If you follow me on Instagram, I have been testing this palette since the end of January when I received it, and it has been an ordeal. And I am finally here ready to talk to you about it, and it might not be what you expect. But let's start with the hard facts. This Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette is a limited edition. It came out, I think, October or fall 2019, and it is actually, as of now, still available at Sephora US, Natasha Denona's website, and I think Beautylish still has some. In the Europe, it's much harder to find. You might find it in store at Sephora Italy or France, but online it's been sold out for a while. And Cult Beauty and Look Fantastic had it for a while, for a little bit, but then that was gone as well. The price of this one is $120 or $129 or 130 euros in Sephora. I've seen it for less at I think Look Fantastic had it a little bit for less, 120 or 110, a little bit less money. I purchased it from Sephora Italy in store in Milan via a friend of mine, and it was on a 30% sale starting at 133 euros, and I bought it for I think 95 euros. So yeah, this is not probably the most expensive eyeshadow palette I have ever bought. However, let's start with saying that if you've seen my other Natasha Denona mini palette reviews, I did the mini gold and the mini glam. I will link them in the cards and in the description box if you want to go see them, especially after the mini gold and having also the mini star. I really fell in love with Natasha Denona eyeshadows, and specifically with their duochrome and crystal, chroma crystal finishes. Really special eyeshadows. This palette right here contains 28 shades, and it has the same price as their 15 shades. So for a while I've had my eye on the Natasha Denona gold palette, but that one has only 15 shades and 430 euros and very big pans. This one has much smaller pan, much closer spacing in between the pans, and yeah, I thought it was a much better value. You would get 28 colors, a wide variety of colors. This is inspired by New York in the 20s and 30s, and it has a lot of nice saturated colors, which is what I like to wear. If you look at the pan size, this one here is a little bit bigger than the mini pan size, and it is smaller, of course, than the 15 eyeshadow pan size. The palette contains a total of 38.45 grams, which turns out to be 1.37 grams per shade, which is above average for any eyeshadow pan that you receive. So definitely a full-size palette, a great value for Natasha Denona eyeshadows, of course. I mean, you can get better values, but 28 shades, I thought it was a really good deal. So I did actually kind of hunt it down, of course with a sale, but I hunted it down. Compared to the gold, I like that it has more saturated blues and greens, and I am a little bit sad, and that is for this palette, but it also held for the mini glam, that there's not a lot of special shades. In this palette, we have only one duochrome, which is this guy right here called Orion. And we have only two chroma crystals, which are this one right here and this guy right here. So those are the special shades. and there's only 3 of them, so that was a little bit disappointing. For the other finishes, there's 12 metallic eyeshadows, and I think the formula and the finish actually changes a bit among them. So if you look at this shade up here, has more texture and more metallic shine than, for example, this shade right here or this one right here, which are a little bit of a more soft metallic, and I talk a little bit about it when I do this eye look at the end of the review. And yeah, so I think that the classification of the metallics could have been broken down a little bit further, but overall there's a lot of very nice foiled metallics and a little bit more satiny or like traditional metallics. Then we have 3 powder mattes, which are this shade, and this shade right here. And then we have 10 creamy mattes, which are all the others. I think the creamy matte formula is definitely innovative and something new. Let me put it down. But not the first one on the market. Natasha Denona has had that finish before on their palettes, and you may find it also in the Nabla Cosmetic Cutie palettes and the Dreamy too. There are, I think Nabla calls it the latex matte formulation, and these are so special. They are a cream formula, but that doesn't really set quickly. It's not a thick cream. It is very, very, very blendable, and especially the dark shades, which some people have complained that weren't really necessary. And if you look at it like this, it seems like you have 3 blacks, and in a lot of photos I thought it looked like you had 3 blacks. But these dark mattes you can sheer out and make just one eyeshadow look. They go from very dark to light, blended out shades really easily. So let me show you. Maybe I can do it with my finger. I usually apply this with a brush, but I can apply them and blend them forever. You can see that you can keep a dark shade and you can blend it out to a very light green and apply more to intensify the green where you need it. And that means that you can apply this on the outer corner or on the lid and make a smoky eye with one eyeshadow. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll probably seen me do that, because I love, especially with this green one, apply this green and then one eyeshadow, one shimmer shadow on my lid and then be done for the day. I think this formula is so innovative and so beautiful, easy to use, and yeah, definitely an asset for the palette. I was afraid, because I have oily skin and oily eyelids, that these creamy mattes would crease on me. And that was actually the case. If you've seen on Instagram, I have been having issues with creasing Natasha Denona eyeshadows since the gold, but the gold only has regular mattes, but especially since trying these creamy mattes, I've had really bad issues of creasing. Now, I know that some of you expected me to make this a failed review or a bad review to this palette because of it. However, in the last few weeks, when I took a little bit of a break to try different formulas and see how this was going, I have observed creasing of my favorite powder eyeshadows, of the Melt formula, of the Lethal Cosmetics formula, the Pat McGrath formula that I tried in the Get Ready With Me that I did with my 2 friends, Meg and Mariam. Mariam brought her Pat McGrath palettes for us to try. I'll link the video up here, because if you have the time, now that we're all in quarantine for the coronavirus, if you have the time, take a look. We had such a great time, and there's like 3 full faces of makeup there that you can take a look at. And I haven't seen a lot of people having creasing issues with Natasha Denona eyeshadows. Some did, but I am now pretty sure that something changed in my body chemistry, in the oiliness of my eyelids, that is making it impossible for eyeshadow to last the whole 12 to 14 hours that I require them to. So I start seeing creasing after the 4 or 5 hour mark, which in my opinion is too short. I want eyeshadows to look perfect, at least for 8 hours, Maybe you can start creasing after 8 or 10 hours, then I would be okay with it. But I wake up in the morning, I apply my eyeshadow between 7 and 8, then go about my day and I remove it between 10 and 11 at night. And that is 14-hour wear, and I expect it to stay there. I also, up to recently, never had a problem with it. So yeah, I have come to the conclusion that it's not the palette, it's definitely my bodily chemistry, so I will not hold that against the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Also, after I had done all the trials possible, I tried, I don't know, 1, 2, or 3 different eye primers. I tried glitter glue with and without, on top of a primer, without a primer. I tried setting the primer, not setting the primer. I tried, honestly, so many different things, and all those trials I did on Instagram. You have them saved in my highlights under Natasha Denona Metropolis, and you can see all of them there. Some of the results were really appalling, with eyeshadows really creasing or going away and fading really badly on me. Yeah, so at this point, I had even said, I don't care about the creasing. This eyeshadow palette and the formula looks so good that I would keep it, not declutter it or sell it or anything, because I really, really like the shadows. It could mean that my days with it need to be shorter, and I probably wouldn't wear it if after a day at work I would have to go out, because it wouldn't last me those 14, 15 hours that I needed to, but for a normal day I could also do so. Also, I'm the only one who notices, because if I have my eyes open, you don't see if things crease. Now I'm doing one last test today, which I'm probably gonna write down the result of in the comments to this video, is that I opened a new eyeshadow primer, the Elizabeth Arden Advanced Eye Fix Primer, which was a gift from a friend, and it is my last backup primer. Usually I use my Milani eyeshadow primer, but this hasn't been working for me anymore. And I have that one on each eye, and I'll see how that goes, but I didn't want to wait with filming this review because I've waited long enough. About my favorite shades. As I said, I'm really, really loving the cream matte shades, and my favorite shades are absolutely the greens, especially this dark green right here. Let me check the name for it. It's called Royal. Right here is amazing, but also the two blues. The difference between the two blues is subtle, but it's there. We have this guy right here, which is more of a royal blue, whereas this guy right here has a touch of green in there, and it is a little bit more teal. I don't know if you can see from the pans, but I have used the royal blue much more often. I find that the teal isn't that original, in the sense that I have a green, I have a royal blue, mix them together, especially since the formula is this beautiful cream formula that applies so well and blends so well. I didn't need this extra shade. Another favorite of mine, as I mentioned, is the duochrome shade right here, and I really, really like this tangerine chroma crystal shade right here, which is much, I don't know, brighter in person than in the pan, and this holds for a bit of all of the shades. A lot of them look much more bland and lighter in the pan than they are on the eyes. This shade right here also is much lighter and brighter than in the pan, and I found myself using these expecting something but coming out with something else. So there is a little bit, there could be improvements to this. And also what I think of this palette is that there is a lot of repetition. Like there is a lot of, how about these two shades? So similar. These three shades, so similar. This yellow and this a little bit more neutral yellow, they actually look very similar on the eye, and so do these coppery shades right here. I like that there is a row of neutral browns. I really like these because you can really make an everyday look just with these two browns and popping this guy right here, which is much more warm toned on the eye than it is in the pan. It's another one that is a little bit I don't know, tricky. I don't know if you can see, but the reflection is much warmer on the finger than it is in the pan. So that is a little bit something to keep in mind. Another shade that I'm not really happy about is this light shade right here. It is the only really inner corner highlight, because as you can see, I am wearing Orion in my inner corner today, and it is quite a dark shade, but this one right here, I don't like the undertone of. It's very bland, and I would have loved a little bit of a warmer undertone, a little bit brighter. I don't know, something a bit more special for the only highlight shades. Of course, you don't have a black here, which you could have probably skipped this eyeshadow and put a black in, and you don't have a matte brow bone highlight, which, I mean, you could have chosen between this and this, picked one, and the other one made it a matte brow bone highlight, and then the palette would be more complete. The darkest shades, as I said, are the blues, the green, and these two dark browns, but even these are not completely dark. What I like and that is unique to this palette are these two shades right here. This one here is Trooper. It's what I'm wearing today in the outer corner. It is much greener, and it fits really well with the shade Lethal, which is another one here of my favorites, this beautiful green shade. It's what I'm wearing in the crease today, and it's one of my most worn shades. The palette comes with a plastic sleeve on top, which is attached to the top part of the palette up here, and you can rip off. But I've been using it to write down how many times I've used the shadows, just putting a dot, and you can really see how I gravitate much more towards the greens and the blues, much less towards the copper and oranges. And maybe I am getting over that trend and it doesn't look as good on me as I always thought, so I don't really use those shades that much, and them being a big part of this palette make it a little bit less, I don't know, versatile or interesting for me. One thing that I wanted to show you is that this palette has magnetic pans like the big Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes. The big ones I think have a hole on the back where you can push out the eyeshadow. This one doesn't, and I have the inglot magnet that I bought to take the inglot shades out of their palette, and I'm gonna show you. You can remove the shadows and place them in a different order in the pan. I have seen a lot of fun renders or people switching their shades out and making them, for example, in a color and light to dark order. I think that looks really cool, but I am trying to keep mine like this to get inspired to do different color combinations. What I feel like I haven't been using a lot, and what I wish there would be, is something to pair with this beautiful red shimmer. This is really gorgeous. It has a lot of interesting reflects, and I keep swatching it on the hand with the green, which is not very smart. And it's really bright and gorgeous, but it would be even better if there would be in this dark cream formula, if there would be a deep burgundy shade. I would love that. I can imagine the richness, and it's one of the things that made me yearn for the Valentine's Day palette that she put out, that had all of these dark burgundies and reds. Really beautiful. Overall, I am happy with my purchase. I think that it is a splurge and it is an extra. It's not a palette that you need. It's not a palette that you can't live without. It's not your everyday palette, and it's not your safe palette. It's a colorful palette, which is something I like, but I find myself going for the same shades all the time, and I think just like a Morphe palette, you could have condensed this in a little bit less shades and put some more interesting shades there. So that is a missed opportunity for these burgundies, a black, a matte brow bone, more duochromes, more chroma crystals. I understand that those are more expensive formulations to make, but hey, we are paying a premium for this eyeshadow palette. So I also expect it to be, a little bit more, I don't know. I don't like, the color story could have been better. I know that my opinion actually is quite similar to one of Kat from Kitchenich. I watch her channel a lot and we like a lot of similar things. I think maybe I go a little bit more on the colorful side of things, but we like a lot of the same things. So there's a little bit of overlap there, but for good reason, I think. It's just building up on the same opinion. That said, I think this is a great palette. If you've been thinking about it, I would definitely recommend it. If you have the budget for it, go for it. It's probably the only big Natasha Denona palette that I would ever buy, because 15 shades for 130 euros is not enough for me, or it's too much money for what you get. But 28 shades, that's much more my jam. And again, this is absolutely gorgeous. So I hope this review was useful for you. I have a tutorial for this eye look that I'm wearing right now coming up right after I'm finished talking. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you're surprised that I actually give it a good review after all the problems it gave me in the last month. Again, as I said, I think it's me, not the palette. What I'm gonna try to do is actually to figure out what ingredients are making my eyeshadows crease, if any of these formula has similar ingredients. But for that, I need a lot of free time. So we'll see when I will have time for that. And I hope to hear from you. Sound off in the comments down below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, and stay tuned right now for the tutorial. Bye! I'm starting applying the shade Lethal in my crease. This is one of the creamy mattes, and it is a beautiful, much brighter green, a lighter green than you can see in the pan. And these blend so well, and they're really, really versatile, because you can blend them out, as you can see, to be almost invisible, but you can also just very specifically apply them so that they will be more pigmented. It is a different experience than using powder mattes, definitely. With a smaller brush, I am taking the shade Troop, which is another creamy matte, and this is a very dark one, and applying it in my crease and on my outer corner. This is also much more green than it looks like in the pan, and a very beautiful shade. I quite snobbed it at the beginning. But as with many of the shades in this palette, you actually have to swatch it to see what the real color is. And this holds also for the shade Shield that I'm now applying on my lid, which is a beautiful green-brown metallic shade, but you can see that it's quite a traditional metallic powder eyeshadow. It's really beautiful, and just the eye look like this, it makes it look very elegant. This type of shade also I can imagine looking very nice on a bit more mature eyelids, and you see that it doesn't really accentuate the texture of my eyelid like other shades do. Next, I'm applying one of my favorite shades, which is the only duochrome in the palette, and it is called Orium. And this is a beautiful, more glittery textured special shade, I would call it. And it's the only, as I said, duochrome. I will apply it first more precisely in my inner corner with a brush, and then apply it on the first half of my lid as a topper with my finger. And I think this makes the eye look really beautiful. But you can see how this type of shade that is a bit more chunky will accentuate texture on the eyelid for more mature eyes, but I think it still looks fantastic. You can also see that I'm having a little bit of fallout here from the darkest shade, so these matte, creamy mattes still give some fallout. I am going to blend one of the powder mattes called Rhizome in my brow bone, just to give it a hint of yellow more and to match it to the other eye. And I usually do this in the other sequence, so first to do the high and then go down. But as I did on the other side, I wanted to do it the same way on this one. And then going in with little again to make sure I still have the green transition right there. And you can see that it is one of the most seamless blends that I've ever gotten. These creamy mattes are really, really outstanding for blending. I never had patchiness like I might have with some of the powder mattes. I'm applying Colourpop eyeliner in, oh, I don't know what it's called, Punch in my waterline. And the same matte powder Rhizome on my lower lash line to tie everything together, to bring it from just a green look to a little bit of sort of yellow. Then I'm taking Imperia, which is a beautiful metallic yellowy gold, and applying it on the inner part of my lower lash line to tie in the shimmer right there. And here is the finished look using the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. This is a typical everyday look for me.